Happy Monday after Super Bowl. Hope everybody's getting through their hangovers and whatever reasonably well. I'm a Detroit fan, so I don't think I'll ever have to worry about getting the elation or the dejection of having my team not win the Super Bowl. But anyway, wanted to chat a little bit and see what other folks thought about the media's presentation of prepping. I assume most of you folks out there have seen Southern Prepper 1, and I think it was on Nat Geo, and I think it was also called Doomsday Preppers. But and then there was another show on either History or maybe it was on Nat Geo also, but that had another group of preppers. And the first show had the guy with the tilapia. I can't remember his name offhand, but he's in Arizona, and he's converted a pool to a tilapia tank and all that stuff. And he was a little overzealous in his prepping than I would be, but then again, he actually makes a living off of it, so good on him. But then they had some other folks that just kind of push. You've got your normal people, then you've got your preppers, and then you've got some of the other folks that they showed. And now that there's going to be a weekly TV show on Doomsday Preppers, it just seems like they're pushing that group to more and more fringe-ish and more counterculture. Not just, counterculture is fine, but when you just start making people out to be crazy, obsessive, nuts, I'm not okay on that. And while I think exposure for prepping in general, I think is actually a really good thing, because people don't take responsibility for their own butt. They're waiting for someone to come fix their ass. But at the same time, they're doing a huge disservice when they're presenting the prepper group as kind of like an offshoot of, I don't know if you guys ever saw it, there was a movie back in the 80s with Robin Williams. He was a survivalist. He went to a survivalist camp or anything, but something like that. But they just present people that are trying to take care of their own, and maybe they do go to extremes about it, but they present them as this group of lunatics, and it's not helping things. Personally, I don't really consider myself a prepper. I'm not, in general, I don't have a year's worth of supplies, and I don't aspire to. I live in Southern California, where an earthquake is a real strong likelihood. I don't expect to see anything even on the order of Katrina, although it could happen. So my bar is raised that I want to be able to survive a Katrina level catastrophe, which means I want to have about a month's supply of food and water, and that's about what I've got. Plus I've got self-defense stuff, and I've taken training on that, and I've got equipment, although it's not as well organized as I'd like it, but I've got bug-in bags or get-home bags where a day or two's worth of food and water, plus the sundry tools and equipment to, if I'm not home when something happens, grab a backpack out of the back of my car and I can get my ass home. Same for my fiance. But part of the problem is, where I don't identify with preppers as a whole, is just because the prepper community is not presented at the best. You've got some great guys like Southern Prepper 1, Hibernia's son, Irish, and a whole bunch of other guys out there that are pretty mellow about the whole thing, and they take it seriously, and they put their, they talk the talk and they walk the walk. But the vast majority of the folks that you just seem to be at least presented in the media, and even by themselves to a degree, as a little bit beyond the fringe. And I'm just wondering what you guys think. Does the media's presentation of prepping, and even the YouTube presentation of prepping, does it help or does it hurt? And do you, by yourself, consider yourself a prepper? I know pretty much everybody that's going to see this video, at least will be into prepping at some point, whether you consider yourself a prepper per se or not. I'm just curious. And what can we do to try to get it to where, tell people just, you don't have to be a lunatic, you don't have to be a fringe, you don't have to be, stockpiling hundreds of pounds of silver, you don't have to be stockpiling 2 years worth of food and water, you don't have to have solar ovens and all the other stuff and have a wood-fired car. But having 2 weeks worth of food and water, medication, basic first aid supplies, and the skills to use it, that's not unreasonable. How the hell do we get people to take that seriously and actually do something about it, rather than sit on their happy ass and relying on things like FEMA and all the others, which I think, like I've said, I think they're a good thing to have around, because I think at some point disasters happen that are beyond the pale of any local, county or even state-funded agency to be able to handle. Katrina proved that. Unfortunately, the administration at that point had a laughingstock running the thing. But anyway, how do we get the average person that maybe doesn't think about it to think about it and to take it seriously? I mean, where I work in a chemical manufacturing facility, and we have 55-gallon drums that are filled with USP, which is basically drug-grade glycerin. And when they're emptied out, they're put in a rack and they're recycled. And they're crushed and shredded. Since we don't get any money for them, I've grabbed several of them, and I've gone out and bought bung wrenches and rinsed them out and given them to people along with the instructions to use it. So I'm doing my part, but a lot of people, when I say, hey, here's a 55-gallon drum, in case of an earthquake, here's something for you, you can have water. They kind of look at you like, eh? And it's not just the fact that it's a 55-gallon drum. I mean, that's not the ideal way to store water. Well, it is and it isn't. But some people look at me and go, oh, cool, thanks, I appreciate that, and kind of go, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Then there's other folks that just completely, they look at that as lunatic. And how do we go about changing that perception? Having shows like Nat Geo's Doomsday Prepper, I think it's doing a disservice to the group, to that culture, to that mindset. So anyway, what are your thoughts? Thanks.